WBNG-12 sports team presents your Southern Tier Kickoff.
Good morning once more from the WBNG studios, and thank you for starting your Saturday with 12 Sports and the Southern Tier Kickoff show. We are finishing up Week 15 here on the desk, and nearly 4 months after kicking off the season, here we are at the goal line and, of course, Army-Navy week. The Bulls have been announced, the CFP bracket is set, and in a few short hours, we're also going to know who's taking home this year's Heisman Trophy as well. We are going to get to all of that in our last half hour with you here this season. But before we do any of that, let's bring in the rest of the STK team here this morning. Michael Villegas, Kyle Spisak, what's going on, gentlemen?
Not much. Great Saturday morning. Great game.
Absolutely. Any Saturday morning with football is good.
Yeah, last night watched a little bit of the FCS playoffs. Montana State put a whooping down on the Vandals.
52-10, I believe that
yeah,
finished at something like that. Yeah, it was a big one, yes.
At least it wasn't in the Kippy Dome, so they're not too sad.
So, all right, only one game on the slate this Saturday, and we all know which one it is. It's the 125th Army versus Navy game that kicks off this afternoon, 3 p.m. right here on WBNG. And for the first time in a long time, the Army Black Knights come in ranked. The 11-1, number 22 team in the country is also headed to the Independence Bowl following this afternoon's matchup with Navy. Michael, what does the Army have to do to get their 12th win this season?
Yeah, well, Zach, I mean, you said it. They have to stick to what they've been doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Army is ranked the 4th time in 30 years, coming in at number 22. The Black Knights are coming off their first ever conference championship win, a commanding 35-14 win in the American Athletic Conference Championship game over Tulane. And they did it by doing what they've done all season long, being sound in all 3 phases of the game. Army's quarterback, Bryson Daly, has carried them literally to success this season, as he had his 29th rushing touchdown last game, which is tied for the FBS lead. And, he's tied with Heisman candidate Ashton Genty. This is Army's second 11-win season in school history, last coming back in 2018, and both coming under head coach Jeff Monken, who says he's preparing for a battle in this game.
This will be my 11th here at Army, and every one of them just seems like it's been a slugfest. There's been some great battles, some really close games, and so I'm anticipating another game very much like that. That it's just going to be blow for blow, and there'll be one team standing at the end.
For the keys to the game for the Black Knights, it's pretty simple, but still important. Don't get fancy. You've had success all season long. Stick to know what you're doing. Might change that. And then on the other side, it's staying healthy for the Black Knights. I mean, getting Bryson Daly inside the 10, it's a guaranteed rushing touchdown for him. And then lastly, minimize the momentum for Navy. This game, as Monken said, is going to be back and forth, a slugfest. So if you can minimize the momentum for Navy, then they have a chance to take the Commander-in-Chief trophy.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about momentum, and we're going to, after we break down Navy, we'll get into the details of the back and forth of this game. But momentum, certainly, when you have 2 teams that are possession-type offenses, ones that aren't necessarily big play-type offenses, that momentum is going to be a big factor in today's matchup. But, of course, there's another team on the other side of the ball game as well. The Navy midshipmen are also having one of their best seasons in recent memory as well. The Navy enters this afternoon at 8-3 on the season. They started off the year 6-0 before dropping 2 marquee matchups, that to Notre Dame and to Tulane, and losing them both badly. The midshipmen are looking to make it 2 wins in a row, though, after taking down ECU last week ahead of its trip to the Armed Forces Bowl against Oklahoma. Kyle, how does Navy accomplish their mission today?
And really, a wise man once named Paul Revere once said, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. But good old Paulie Boy got one aspect of this wrong. When the midshipmen come to town, how about 3 by air? Navy sailed away from their traditional triple option offense this year and opened fire through the air a bit more, with QB Blake Horvath slinging 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns through the air this season. Horvath may have dropped more bombs than a B-52 this season, but most of his damage was done throughout an Army-styled attack on the ground and pound offense. rushing 13 touchdowns throughout the season. It was smooth sailing for the midshipmen throughout the first 6 weeks until they started to take on water after getting shelled by 37 against Notre Dame. With Army coming off of their first conference championship in program history, Navy head coach Brian Newberry says that Navy has to get back to their play style to take home America's oldest rivalry.
I thought that we were a team that made some mistakes in that game. I thought we pressed a little bit. And sometimes you want something so bad that you try to play outside of yourself, and just remind them that you can't do that in a game like this. In a lot of ways, less is more in a game like this. And so just get them to understand that. I think playing that environment certainly helped early in the year.
And for Navy, the key to this game is going to be get the ground game rolling. But with that, they can't be afraid to air the ball out either. And the midshipmen in this one need to find a way to stop the absolute tank of a quarterback in Bryson Daly, who nears nearly 1,000 yards in both rushing and passing this season.
Could you have gotten any more puns in?
I
was cooking off.
That's good. That was good.
I was counting there.
I was impressed. Yeah, the over/under. I'm not sure. I mean, that would have
slam the over on that one.
Hammer it over.
All right, so let's get to the game. We talked about both sides. We talked about Army. We talked about Navy. We mentioned a little bit the momentum of it. We mentioned the back and forth, the offensive style. I think when you look at this game, it comes down to that quarterback play. It comes down to Daly on the offensive side for Army, a guy who's had 29 touchdowns, a guy who's the second Army quarterback of all time to throw for 1,000 yards and rush for 1,000 yards in a season. So honestly, I mean, when it comes down to it, the ability to have that big play, the ability to hit really quickly, something that I don't think Navy has, is going to be the difference ultimately in the game. I know it's a 6.5-point spread, but I am going to go with Army. I'm going to take the Black Knights to get to 12-1 because the methodical play of Navy, that's great. It's going to get some points on the board, but not as quick as that strike that Bryson Daly can go. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, this spread was a little bit closer the first time we had this up there, but for me, it was a 6.5 spread as well. That I think in this type of game where you have Army and Navy rivalry game, and then they both run the triple option offense, but they both have proven that they can throw the ball, which is kind of surprising. And I think what separates this game from the rest of the Army-Navy games we've had in the past. So I think that Army, though, ultimately will take care of it. They've done it in all three phases of the game. They did it against Tulane on special teams, forcing their kicker forced a fumble on a kick return. I've never really seen that before. So I think that in all three phases of the game, they're going to get it done with a 6.5-point spread. So I'm going to take Army.
Are we going for a clean sweep here, or do we have a disrespecter or a dissident here at the bench? I'm not disrespecter at all. In fact, actually, thank you to our service to both the boys and women of the armed forces here in this particular matchup.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to have to stick with the trend here and go with Army. Grandfather was an Army vet, so got to go with it for that sense. But also because, like you guys mentioned, their offense is just so dominant with that running game. The triple option, Bryson Daly is just outstanding at finding open space and being able to get downfield, especially once he gets downhill. It's real hard to stop a guy with that kind of one size and two speed with that size. And I think the real thing in this game that's going to determine the outcome is going to be who can possess the ball the longest. Army is about 35-42 a game possessing the ball, and Navy sits right about that 30 mark. So both of these teams are teams that hold on to the ball quite a bit and really just outleg their opponents. But I like that quick, like you said, the quick style of offense that Army has, just a quick strike. If you can catch Navy sleeping in the start of the game, you can close it out in the first half.
And that's where I think that backdoor cover necessarily maybe comes into play here. You have those two possession-style offenses. It's going to be close, likely. But the problem is that if Army does get one or two big plays, that can result in 6, 10. That can result in a 14-point lead real quick. And it's hard for Navy to get back into these ball games. As you've seen in the games that they lost, whether it be to Notre Dame, to Rice, to Tulane, once they got down, you're forcing them to play not their style of ball game. Yes, they have thrown more this year, but they're not a throwing team. There is a difference. So, I mean, I think if Army does happen to get up 10, it's going to put pressure. They're going to start to press on that Navy sideline, and that could play into a turnover or two for Army.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. When you run the ball this much, you don't leave a lot of room for error for if you get down early. The clock's going to be running. It's going to be a really quick game if you run the ball that much. But on the other side of it, Army's defense, as much as this is about Bryson Daly and the rushing touchdowns he has, Army's defense is ranked 13th in first downs allowed with 203, 4th in interceptions in 17, which is kind of surprising going against as many passing touchdowns, and then 1st in red zone defense. So I think their defense is going to hold up too.
All right. We are going to have more on this game as well, but before we wrap up our preview of WBNG's Game of the Week, of course, the 125th meeting of Army and Navy. We're going to head on over to the Weather Center and STK meteorologist Connor Thompson for your football forecast.
Army versus Navy today at 3 o'clock. Let's see what we can expect for this game weather-wise, and you can take a look. Overall, it's not too bad. Partly cloudy skies expected all the way throughout. Looking at kickoff through the fourth quarter, temperatures do gradually start to drop down into the mid-30s by around fourth quarter, but really no weather issues are expected here throughout the game, so hopefully you can sit down and enjoy the game in Landover, Maryland between Army and Navy today.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you are a Pennsylvania resident, or call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY if you are a resident of New York. Please gamble responsibly.
12 Sports Team presents your Southern Tier Kickoff.
This morning to your Southern Tier Kickoff show, and later this evening, just a couple hours from here, in the heart of New York City, the Heisman Trophy will be handed out to this year's top player in all of college football. 4 finalists have been invited to the Lincoln Center for the ceremonies, and before we let you know who we think should be the winner, let's break down the season and our finalists one more time. First up is the two-way star for the Colorado Buffaloes, Travis Hunter. Hunter will go down as one of the greatest two-way players in the history of the game. He was named All Big 12 first-team receiver, earning honorable mention as well as the Offensive Player of the Year. He leads the Big 12 with 92 receptions, 14 touchdowns, and is second with over 1,100 yards. His 21 receiving yards of more than 20-plus leads the nation. He's also the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous first-team defensive back. He had 31 tackles and led the Big 12 with 11 pass breakups and second with 4 interceptions.
And next up is Boise State's running back, Ashton Jeanty. The junior running back has one of the most productive seasons in college football history. His near 2,500 rushing yards are the 4th highest in a single season in the FBS. And his 192 yards per game lead the nation and are 58 higher than the next highest average. Jeanty rushed for at least 125 yards in 13 straight games, and he's gone for over 200 in his last 2 games, in a total of 6 times this season. He's averaging 6.26 yards per carry, and his 344 attempts are the most in FBS in 2 seasons. He and Army's Bryson Daly share the national lead with 29 rushing touchdowns.
And Cam Ward is the first of 2 quarterbacks named on the finalist list this season. Miami quarterback was named the Associated Press Offensive Player of the Year and Newcomer of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. He leads the nation with a school record 36 passing touchdowns, his 4,123 passing yards, 4,319 total yards, 343 passing yards per game, and 41 total touchdowns rank second. Ward leads the nation's highest scoring offense with 44 points per game. He became the first Miami quarterback to post 7 straight 300-yard games, and he has 10 games with 300-plus yards and 3 or more touchdown passes.
And finally, we have Oregon's Dillon Gabriel. Gabriel, who transferred from Oklahoma in the offseason, led the unbeaten and #1 ranked Oregon Ducks to the Big Ten championship in their first year in the Big Ten and the #1 overall seed in this year's college football playoff. Gabriel averaged 274 yards passing per game this season. He's thrown for 28 touchdowns with just 6 interceptions. His completion rate of 73.2 is second in the nation. His 35 total touchdowns, tied for 7th in the nation. And in his career, 187 touchdowns, the highest in NCAA history. He also set the all-time FBS record for career quarterback starts. That in his 62nd start, that came against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. So those are your finalist selections. Let's get into it. I know you guys had a little bit of argument of who picked who last week and what's going on, but Kyle, we'll start with you. Who you got tonight in New York City?
I mean, I got to go with the guy who won not just the Doak Walker, but also won the Maxwell Award, Ashton Jeanty. He's just been unimaginable this year. I mean, they call him Michael Myers for a reason. The dude's a killer back there. You cannot stop that man. And don't get me wrong, Travis Hunter, fantastic season. One of the best, like you mentioned, one of the best two-way players to ever play it. And we'll probably never see something like that ever again in college football at that pedigree of what he accomplished. But the reason I take Jeanty over him is Jeanty took a not even a Power 5, a Group of 5 team, put them on his back, and got them to a bye in the college football playoff. Without Jeanty, Boise State might not even make it to the playoff, let alone get a bye in it. Colorado, Hunter was great. He had more help than Genty did, and they weren't able to make it to that point. So I got to put it with the guy who's not only breaking records left and right. I mean, the leading rusher in the nation, Genty, there's one guy after that. Third is Genty after contact. And that's just unreal.
So Genty right now, plus 800 overall to win. Travis Hunter, your favorite at minus 2,000. Is the favorite going to take it home tonight, or do you think it's going to be somebody else?
I do think it's going to be the favorite. I mean, it's just very rare in college football to do what he's been doing. Over, 100 snaps per game, which is unreal, the conditioning that you have to have. Usually, you get some break in between, but on the defensive side and the offensive side, I think it's going to be interesting that is he going to beat Lee Moore as a defensive player to win the Heisman first since Charles Woodson did decade plus ago, or is it going to be kind of like a wishy-washy, he's a receiver as well? But it's very impressive what he's done all season long. I think he's going to be the favorite, and he's going to be the winner. All
right, real quick, 15 seconds each for each of you guys. Do the quarterbacks have a chance tonight?
I don't think they do.
I agree. I don't think so.
All right. And, one of those quarterbacks not even invited actually had better numbers than Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, who was throwing the ball to Hunter. But I think a lot of that vote got split between the two. Ultimately, I think it comes down, as you guys were talking about it, is snaps a category? Does that count as a statistical category? Does the fact that he's playing more than 100 come into the voters' hands? But either way, there certainly will be first-round picks come April in the NFL. So don't go anywhere. We are wrapping up today's show and wrapping up this year's season when we come back with the predictions for the first round of the college football playoffs.
12 Sports Team presents your Southern Tier Kickoff.
All right, welcome back one more time to the Southern Tier Kickoff Show. We're going to break down the CFP and make our picks not against the spread, but our picks for the 4 games coming up in the first round. But before we do, let's take a look at the standings as we made picks through 16 weeks this season. And as we have 1 game left, Army-Navy, we made our picks here. You can find the rest on our website. Final standings, I took home the championship this year, 60-35. Connor Thompson and Keith Savage, their picks today matter because they will determine whether or not they are profitable or not for the season. Aaron Smith, Kyle, Michael, and Kevin all fighting to be 500 possibly at the end of the year as well. So let's get into it. Like I said, these games will not be against the spread. We're just breaking down the 4 games that we have here in the first round. And we'll start with a team that we've covered all year, Penn State. They'll be playing at home against SMU in the 4 versus 11 matchup. The 5, or no, that is 6. The 6-10 matchup. My apologies. Not getting a bye in that first round with the 4. But the 6-10 matchup, I'm going to go right to you because you're going to be at that game. What can we expect? What do you like in that game?
I think what we really have to pay attention to in this game is you have a team that plays in Dallas coming up to Happy Valley in the middle of the winter. It's freezing cold, and we've seen in college football, teams from down south usually can't make that transition up north very well and play in those colder elements. Penn State's been bred for this. A lot of their players are from Ohio and more northern states that are used to that kind of temperature and things like that. But the thing with Penn State that they have to watch out for is SMU's got a heck of a running back and a dual threat quarterback. That's been their big threat all year long for the Nittany Lions is they can't stop the run. They've been fine when it comes to the pass. If they can't stop the run, they're going to doom themselves this game.
All right, Michael, what do you think?
I think Penn State's going to take it. I mean, SMU is seeing the showing that they had against Clemson. Wasn't really overall enthusiastic about it. I mean, they did great this season getting into the ACC championship game, but couldn't close out against Clemson. So I think Penn State is going to take this one.
All right, we are in the 2-minute drill here on the show. So real quick, we'll run through the last 3 games. Tennessee, Ohio State, that's the 8-9 matchup. I actually like Tennessee to pull the upset, even going up to the cold. I think this is a bad spot for Ohio State, and I think this is the last game for Ryan Day. Who you like?
I'm going to go with the Bulls, too. I like that. Them going up there. They've been a heck of a team. Samson's a great running back. I like the upset here.
All right.
I'm taking the Tennessee as well over Ohio State. I think that they were going to get it done. Ohio State's on a little bit of a down note right now.
I mean, the big thing that Ohio State has not been able to do is stop the run, especially right up the middle, and that's the specialty of Tennessee for sure. Clemson, Texas, the 5-12. Clemson getting in on a 56-yard field goal to end the game. Texas, at one point, could have been the #1 overall seed. I do like Texas here. How about you guys?
I'm going to have to go with Clemson in this one just because I think Texas has played a really soft schedule this year, and I think that going back-to-back, playing really difficult and veteran teams when it comes to the playoffs, I think that's going to not play to Texas's advantage.
I mean, I would like to see Clemson win, the ACC get up there, on top of the fact that the storyline would be great that Syracuse got them there, and then they go further and take down a SEC school in Texas now. But I still think Texas is too powerful for Clemson that squeaked into this playoff.
All right, and then finally, real quick, Notre Dame, Indiana, a matchup of a basketball school versus a football school, and Indiana fans not knowing who to cheer for because they go back and forth between the two. I like Notre Dame. Real quick, who you like?
Jeremiah Love, absolute dog. Give me the Irish.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame as well. I think that they have been tried and true this season against an Indiana team that's been a little bit iffy, so for my taste, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't think that Miami or Alabama necessarily has the true resume to get in. I think Alabama less than Miami, but if there was a team to take out of the CFP, I would have taken Indiana out. The fact that they didn't play any of the big teams in the Big Ten, I get that they're the Big Ten and they only have one loss, but they didn't play a Big Ten schedule. They played an Ivy League schedule, some of the teams that they played, but we thank you. We're at 20 seconds here left, and I want to thank both Keith Savage and Kevin Quinn as well for being a part of the team. Our producer, Aaron Smith, and the amazing team in the booth as well, directing and keeping the audio going. It's been a great season. We will see you next August for our next kickoff, and enjoy the game.